Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Cosmic Compass Conversations. Today, on this day when we need a little respite, we're going to celebrate the fairies. That is just how it works here. And I'm very excited that um, we will be talking to someone who's got a long-standing relationship with fairies, and some of you do as well. So I'm very excited about that. And before we do that, though, we are going to do some breathing. And I'm actually going to pull some of the fairy cards today. Um, in addition, I will send out I will send out a email with, to those of you on the list, I'll send it out an email with the other cards as well. But for today, we're going to focus on fairies. So welcome everyone. And sorry for the slow start here, but just trying to get organized and make sure everybody who wants to get in can get in. So here we go. Welcome, welcome. And we're going to go ahead and start with some breathing. So if you want to join me, great. If you are working and you can't close your eyes, not a problem. You can just bring your awareness inward and allow yourself to just take a moment to pause and do some breathing. And again, if you're sitting at a desk and your other people are around, just kind of bring that focus inward. If you are out walking around, don't close your eyes necessarily, but bring that focus inward. I'm going to close my eyes and just bring my attention, bring my energy back into my body. It's been a busy morning, and just taking a moment to really anchor into the earth and really thank the earth for being with us on the journey. So important right now to really ground and center. This is where all our tools come in handy. So again, putting my feet on the ground, taking a breath into the belly, exhaling through the mouth, feeling the feet on the ground, feeling the earth beneath, thanking the earth, thanking all those who have come before, and breathing in, expanding the belly, and exhaling. And again, dropping roots into the earth if that's comfortable for you, breathing up through the soles of the feet, expanding the belly, and exhaling. And again, just breathing in, feeling that support of the earth, feeling the support of yourself and all those gathered around you, breathing in, expanding the belly, and exhaling when you're ready. And welcome back when you're ready to come back. And today we are going to pull from the Fairy Well cards and get ourselves started that way. So I am going to work the first one I'm going to work with is, I think, the original deck, but we'll find out when we talk to our wonderful guest today. But we're just gonna, I hope I don't mix them up. I don't think I can. I think they're different. So two decks here. So the first card, this might be the second deck, I think, is this one here. And I love this. And it says, "Your song matters. When you share it with joy, it inspires others to sing too." Pretty good for reading backwards, huh? All right. Your song matters. That's our first card for today. And I'm going to pull from I think this must be the original deck. I have an extra card here. I'll reveal in just a moment. Okay. Ah, yes. This is perfect, right? This will be perfect. See if I can get that to come into it. You can do it, camera. I know it wants to focus on everything else. There we go. There we go. You can find a safe space when the world feels scary. Okay. There we go. All right. And then I'm going to pull from this same deck again. This is the younger version, I think. I like it. My inner children love these decks. I might tend a little toward overdoing it here, but that's okay. Let's see. There's no overdoing in the fairy realm, right? All right. I don't. Okay. I'm in a different space, so it wants to pick up on everything. I don't want it to pick. There we go. I feel proud when I am responsible. Walking the dog, talking to the snails. Love it. Okay. So, interesting messages for this morning. Your song matters when you share it with joy and it inspires others to sing too. Agreed. I feel proud when I'm responsible and I can find a safe space when the world feels scary. I like all of those. And then there was a mystery card that got in because I'm traveling, so I was pulling the decks together and I must have put in a little extra card. So the mystery card is enjoyment. And this is from one of Tosha Silver's decks. So it's, I mean, how can we not bring that in? Striving and pushing makes life into endless hard work. The more you're inviting love to take over, the more enjoyment comes. Allow me to enjoy this life, dear Lord. So that's from Tosha Silver's deck, a little hitchhiker on the journey with the fairies. And I'm pretty sure they brought that along on purpose. So I recognize that these cards are really important today, particularly the safe space card, and we're going to talk to our guest in just a moment. But I wanted to say a couple of things about how the astrology is right now. Not surprisingly, it's intense. We have a lot of planets all um, in a very direct relationship with each other at the early degrees of a lot of signs. And we have a lot of the outer planets doing that. And we also have Mars starting to get into some of that as well. So there is a lot of energy. And one of the things that I love focusing on is how can we utilize that energy to be more of ourselves? How can I utilize that energy to not just sing, but do what inspires me. And if singing is part of inspiring, or listening to singing or listening to music, that's great. Um, there's a lot for us to create at this time. And one of the things that seems to be surfacing is how do I go into that mode when things feel very stressful, dire, all good questions. One of the things I would say is that we have Jupiter moving into an extraordinarily beautiful alignment with the sun right now, and then by Wednesday, moving into a beautiful alignment with the moon. So I think that the universe is saying, I've got you. I've got you. There's a reason to feel joy. And sometimes, and again, I'm not saying this to people who are obviously really suffering. I can't say that with any confidence, but what I can say to those of us that have the privilege to feel joy right now is that there is there is something here that the cosmos is stressing, that is saying this, there's still hope here, there's still joy. Where do you find it? Where do you feel it? And how can you fill up with it and fill your well, which will get us into the fairy well soon. How do we fill our well so that we are able to then give to others and share with others? How can we move ourselves into action and not inaction? And for some, I will say Mars, Mars is going to move some of us into action in different ways. But I do think that the sun, the moon, Jupiter, and all of these beautiful cosmic alignments that are happening for really, it's very unusual. And in many ways, it's the first time in our entire lifetimes that this has happened. Now, for some, there are certain planets that are moving into alignments that if you're over age 80, um, four, you've been here before. But if you're not over age 84, some of this, I mean, all of this is new. So we are truly at a change point. And I think with that, there is that responsibility, right? That card, that responsibility to how can I work with my own energy at this time? And how can I be in my own life living with love, and really how can I have a place in my life where I am filling the well in light of all of the circumstances that make that challenging. What are some small ways that you might be able to do that? So as I segue into talking to our guest, I want to talk a little bit about what happens when the world feels a little scary. For me, the energy of the time triggers some of my own PTSD, right? This is not unusual. And this is probably a topic that deserves a lot more conversation. And I have an idea of how to bring that forward in a good way later on. But that idea of how do I create security and safety when I'm not feeling that way? So, a lot of us are feeling our capacity for that diminishing. And I'd like to suggest that there is a way for us to increase it. And I have to say that these fairy cards really speak to that for me because it's my inner child, my inner children. And for those of you that have worked with me, you understand what I'm talking about. And for those of you that may not have worked with me yet around the inner children, just bear with me. But the inner children are they're feeling that stress, and they're feeling uncertain, and they're feeling that lack of safety, or they're feeling unhappy, whatever it is they're feeling. It's Jupiter and Cancer time. Okay, it's Jupiter and Cancer time. This is the time to feel. This is our time to feel. And Cancer governs not just the feelings and sensitivity and intuition, it also governs children and astrologically speaking, and the inner child and the home and a bunch of other things as well. So the focus really becomes how do I create safety within myself? And then I can rebuild my capacity, and then I can put myself in action, and then I can do something that hopefully will support a better world, a better place, a better community, a better home. It can start really small. For some of you, you've heard me talk about Edgar Cayce before. For some of you who don't know who Edgar Cayce is, he was someone who, he was called the sleeping prophet, and he was a psychic who would lay down and take a nap, which I think was probably a trance state, and then he would share things with people. And I started reading the Edgar Cayce books when I was probably 10 or 11, and I really found them to be fascinating because there was this person who could tune in and see things, and not unlike myself at that time, probably in some ways he might have been my first teacher, even though he wasn't around, because I think I just felt like normalized, right? So, one of the things that he said is you've got to start within your own self, then your family, then your community, then you move out into these circles. And so, one of the things that I have always remembered from that time is I do have to start with myself. And so, when we think about the Saturn and Neptune in Aries, we remember that in order for us to be advocates, in order for us to have that energy, we need to fill ourselves first. Okay. And then Jupiter in Cancer says we're going to be highly sensitive. We're going to have lots of intuition. We're going to have lots to draw upon, but we must nourish in order to flourish. Okay. So nourish and flourish is our Jupiter in Cancer motto for the year, for the rest of, 12 months. And in order to do that, I think these fairy cards are the best thing we could have right now, for at least for my inner children. Anyway, I'm going to bring on our guests so that you are not just listening to me right now. I'm going to add in Ellen Heintz. Ellen, thank you so much for joining me.
Hello.
Hi. Um, I love the Fairy Well cards, and we haven't talked yet about the fairies, but I actually feel fairies all the time. And I know that you have a long-standing relationship with fairies, and I am really curious. I mean, there's so much to say about the cards, the fairies, the other things that are coming through the fairy well, but how did this happen?
How did this happen? Actually, I love what you were just saying a few minutes ago because as we, I just want to say, as we're working with kids, as we have kids in our lives, it's like our inner children completely influence how we're talking to them and how we're influencing them. And it's so important to, put your own oxygen mask on first, right?
Yes.
Um, Yeah, how it started. I have a background in early childhood education. My whole life was young children before I moved into the corporate world and lost that. Um, but I grew up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, playing in the woods, building fairy houses. Fairies were an escape for me as sort of a socially awkward child, and so I just have this connection to the fairies and the how they can kind of be the in between where you might not be comfortable talking to an adult or you might not be comfortable in a situation where you're put on the spot, but the fairies are an intermediary, right? They're there to be your support. So I
I
wanted to have
love it.
I wanted to have some influence and leave something behind that made a difference for kids. And I've missed being with children. And so I just sort of melded my love of fairies and children and what I know and wanted to create some emotional wellness tools.
I'm so happy to hear that. And one thing that I think is really interesting and perhaps a little fairy-like right now is that I'm in the Santa Cruz Mountains right now. That's where I am. And if that's where your first encounter with the fairies was, that's pretty interesting to me. I love those synchronicities and coincidences. And I'd love to, again, I'd like to talk a little bit about how being a parent, being an educator, has really influenced a lot of the messages that come on these cards, and to talk a little bit about how you develop the cards. And by the way, we are having a raffle at the end, and we're going to raffle off a deck of cards. So, side note. So yeah, Ellen, how did you come up with all of, I mean, I'm impressed because I've seen this project from beginning to end, and one thing I didn't show you all is on the back, there are, yeah, you're going to tell us all about this. This is pretty amazing. You're going to just tell us how you came up with this.
Yeah, I've always been sort of creative. I wouldn't say I'm an artist. I am creative.
Yes.
Um, so I wanted to have some fun doing it. But I have a child who had social anxiety. I was a child with social anxiety. And again, I've been a nanny for a child with autism. I kind of pulled on everything I have and I know and I've experienced and really looked at what would I have wanted to have heard. I grew up Gen X, child of parents who didn't know how to emotionally really support children. And there's a big movement right now of affirmation cards for children, but everywhere I look, it's I am brave, I am kind, and I just it doesn't resonate with me. If I were a little child, I could have read that and I still don't think I would have believed it. And so I wanted to create something that was more growth mindset,
Mhm.
right? I may not feel this way, but that doesn't mean I won't, or that just because I can't do this yet doesn't mean it's out of my reach. And so I really wanted to just create something different that I didn't see out there.
I love
Um,
this. And I want to come back to that in all because I want to talk about this
mhm.
in just a moment.
Yeah.
But let's talk about, before we go there, let's talk about the fairies. Let's go
Mhm.
back and
Yep.
talk about, because you're right, you wouldn't maybe have believed it, except that the fairies
Mhm.
became a bridge of some
Right.
kind. Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. So the way that the fairies came into this project, again, my passion for them, my experience with them, but it gives an element of being able to talk about the feelings without being preached at by your parents,
got it.
without it being driven into you in a way that you might be reject it.
Mhm.
And yeah, the back of the cards, what she was showing is that there's a story about what's happening on the cards. There's some questions that the kids can talk about with grown-ups, or I'm actually wanting to create something for classrooms with this as well.
Mhm.
But at the bottom there's some fairy wisdom, right? What do the fairies have to say about this, that's a little piece of fairy advice, that takes out the intensity of an adult telling you the same message.
Yeah, and Ellen, I wanted to add something to what you were saying because I think my inner children love these so much because my adult self is obviously
Mhm.
running the show most of the time, most of the time. But the fairies were also very important in my life, and I didn't have anybody else really talking about the fairies.
Mhm.
And so it's almost like it's an affirmation of even just being out in nature and knowing that there were other beings around and that we weren't as alone
Yeah.
as we might have felt. And I think also, like you said, being able to read this now and know that we as adults can take care of this inner child and help create that. Now, we do have people here who are parents, grandparents. So
Mhm.
there are ways to utilize that, for other people in our lives. But I love what you have. And I'm going to just go ahead and read the fairy wisdom, and then you can share with us like how that came through and what you
Mhm.
would want for us with that. For the safe space card, which I have to say, when I was young, I did seek safe spaces and I didn't have very many of them, but I had an avocado tree with a swing out in an orchard of tangerine trees. I know that sounds funny, but I that's that was one of my safe spaces. But and I think for a lot of people here, our cats, our dogs,
Mhm.
horses, um, safe spaces, right? Yeah. So here's what you say on the back of this card, or here's what the fairies say, and you can explain how that came through. It's important to have a safe space where you can feel good and have someone safe to talk to. For some people, it is their home. For other people, it might be their school, a teacher, or a friend's house. It's important to have a safe space where you always feel listened to and loved. So, yeah, what else do you want to say about that? Because it's really a powerful message.
Well, that card specifically was an interesting one because I did work with a friend of mine who's a licensed child social worker to kind of run these by before I finalized them. And my original card was that you're home, you can go home when you need a safe space. And she made it very clear that's not always the case, and don't
Right.
forget. So that was
Yeah.
a perfect example. I honestly, I don't want to say I thought of what I would have wanted to know or hear, the message I would have wanted to have been told. I also brought in what would I have said to my child, my
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
anxious child who was my Velcro child.
Mhm.
And then I just sat back and kind of tried to let it flow in. I didn't try to create it myself. And I don't know where it came from, but the fairies, I believe.
I think so too. Now, there's a whole lot for us to say about fairies in general. And the fae or the fairies have they have different evolutions and different stories. We call things fairy tales that aren't actually fairy tales at all. And fairies in certain parts of the world are mischievous at times, at the very least. I think what really is for me with this fairy well is a reminder, then I can show you the back of these cards, that this fairy well, as you say in your bio, the very well. How can we become very well? I loved that. Um, Reminds us that we need to fill up, and we do need to, for every single one of these cards, there are questions, right? And that's going to help with the inquiry. So if I'm speaking to, let's say this deck, I think is this deck,
That's the younger deck. It's
this is
it's
yeah, ages what?
like 3 to 7.
3 to 7. Okay. So this is very sweet. There's a story, and I won't read the whole story, but it talks about the birdhouse and it talks about feeling safe in different spaces. And then there's two questions. And the first question is, where is your safe space? Who can you talk to there who feels safe? That's a really good question. And for some of us, that was my cat, right? I mean, school wasn't safe for me. Home wasn't safe for me. So I love that you worked with someone who understands that. And the second question is, what makes your safe space feel special to you? I guess that's the third question, but and having that safe space. So if you're working with your inner child, you can still ask these questions as an adult. These are excellent questions as an adult, especially right now. I have to tell you, these are excellent questions. But if you were working with your kids, if you were like, let's say, your beautiful, not Velcro child anymore, obviously, um, but if you were working with your child again, um, as a parent, how would you approach this?
Well, personally, I would use them at bedtime. Or I would use them if we were having story time. I might make it part of, like a ritual of just what we do.
Mhm.
But I think what I tried to do in the questions and is to create something so that anybody who's having a conversation with the child, it's so easy to drop into giving advice and
Mhm.
talking from your perspective
Mhm.
and or asking questions that are yes or no questions.
Mhm.
I tried to write them to just open discussion and hear things that you might not hear and perspective from the child, whether it's a grandchild or a
Mhm.
it, whoever, whatever adult is, even a babysitter, right?
Mhm.
It's just opens up conversations in a way that allows for diving in.
Mhm. So a non-threatening space,
Yeah.
obviously, a
Yeah.
really open space. And really, I love this with the Jupiter and Cancer energy because this really is what Jupiter and Cancer is. I mean, it's one of the many aspects of it, but just creating that safe space, creating what is allows for that nurturing to come through in whatever form and not having any, like you said, not having any preconceived ideas of what that needs to be.
Mhm.
And I think that, I mean, I'm not a parent, but I can imagine that that might not always be easy as a parent to set aside what you want for your child, what you hope you're giving your child, um, and be able to listen to what your child really has to say about where their safe spaces are.
Yeah, and some of the other ones touch on harder emotions like anger and things like that. And if you're having those conversations when you're not dealing with an angry child, right?
Mhm.
It's
Oh,
like
right. Good point.
being
Yes.
able to talk about the emotions outside of the
Mhm.
outside of whatever situation is causing just
Mhm. Yeah. No.
explosions or meltdowns. It gives the words, it gives the chance to reflect later,
Mhm.
dive back into something that may have happened, but now they're in a space they can talk about it.
I love that. And this card that we pulled about responsibility has, obviously he's taking the dog for a walk. And the fairy wisdom for this card is being responsible means taking care of things that are important to you. When you do your part, whether it's helping a pet, cleaning up, or keeping a promise, you can feel proud of yourself. Responsibility helps you grow strong and capable. And again, this is great wisdom for all of us and for children or inner children, but for children to take part in life, to engage in life, feeling more empowered. And I think that's what this one is really speaking to, is how can they feel more empowered? And ultimately, when we do feel really scared, we're feeling really disempowered. At least I mean, that's how I feel. So
Mhm.
I'm going to guess that that's probably a fairly universal feeling. So, um, okay, so these are the younger version.
And on the younger version,
Yes.
people are maybe thinking there's no fairies. What are you talking about? It's not a fairy. Each
Mhm.
picture has a hidden fairy in it.
Oh,
The fairy is in there watching over what's happening.
okay. So here,
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that because to me, this is what the fairies have to say. So
Yeah.
there it is right there. I'm sorry
Yeah.
that I'm having a hard.
It's
There it is. There's one. Oh, and she makes it. I think here's the other one. Okay. There's the other one right there. I love this. I love this. I know a lot of people have asked you about the art. Um, as someone who's highly creative, but as you pointed out, not artistic, there is a difference. How did you create these?
well, I did do some art.
Oh, see,
It's
you are artistic. Okay.
it's digital collage.
Mhm.
Um, then basically I created elements that were missing. So, but the characters, I did not draw them from scratch, but I each picture probably has 20 to 30 little elements in it.
Well, I'm going to say you're artistic then. I'm going on the creative and artistic train now. Okay, because I wouldn't be able to do that. So that's beautiful. I love it. Okay, now the older deck,
Yeah.
which looks has this back and this on the front.
Yeah,
Thank
I did not put stories and discussion on the older deck because those are really meant to be more of a self-support, just as adults use
you.
cards.
Hmm.
Um, and originally I said they were sort of 8 to 13, 14-year-olds, but I've had so many adults who've wanted them for themselves.
Telling you, they're
So,
really good. I think they're really good. I'm going to pull another one just because. Um, there is a little card here that's included with the deck, and it does talk. And again, we know how to use cards because we do this every week. But if you were going to gift these, and I have ideas, by the way, for where I might want to gift these, um, how to use the cards when you wake up. Select a card to start your day with a sprinkle of fairy wisdom. When you feel worried or stuck, before a big moment, when you need a little hope, and at bedtime. Um, and one more fairy secret, it says, you don't have to fix anything. These cards are here to support you, remind you, and celebrate all the magic that is already inside you. Fly bravely, beautiful soul. We believe in every step you take. I mean, who doesn't need this message? I mean, who does not need this message? This is great. So now I'm going to pull another card from this deck just because they're so magical. And it's something that we all might want to partake in today for our magic. Okay, this is true. And there we go. Worries often feel bigger at night. remember, morning always brings a new start. It's a good reminder, a good reminder. So, Ellen, if you had had these cards when you were growing up and you were, let's say you were a teenager or younger, um, how would you personally have used them?
I would have used them as bookmarks.
I love it. Tell us more about that.
No, well, first of all, I was never home. I was always on the go, but
Yeah.
I would have kept them with me to glance at during the day.
Hmm.
Again, if I was in if I were a child today, I would have been, tagged in some kind of program as a child with some emotional needs.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I could have used them throughout the day just to get a boost of confidence or get over nerves or
Hmm. Yeah. You know what I would have done since we're confessing? I would have gotten my stuffed animals
Hmm.
and I would have pulled each of them a card and put them in a circle so they could have their own little fairy circle. And each and every one of them would have gotten a card. And then any cats we had around, I would have pulled the cats' cards to make sure they had cards, just like I do now. So it's kind of interesting. I'm not sure we change all that much as we get older. I mean, we evolve, hopefully. But I do love pulling cards. And then I would have pulled my card. I would have pulled a card for myself at that point. I'm not sure what I would have done with it. And it's interesting to consider like how we change and develop, or actually that we are very much who we are at our essence when we are young, because it was so easy for me to set up the stuffed animals and have I'm serious about this. Okay, so this is a big reveal on the vulnerable side. But hey, Jupiter's in Cancer. That's what we do right now. Um, I had a little talk show that I would record with my little microphone on my little recorder, and I think I feel like it might have been a cassette or it may have been an earlier version, but it was probably a cassette recorder. And I'd have my little microphone and I'd set up my little animals and I'd be the animals. I would have their voices and I would talk to them. And I would have loved this. I would have been doing right now what I'm doing right now with my stuffed animals and my cassette recorder. So, but I would have felt better because I would have had this wisdom coming through, which I love.
one other thing. I have plans of where I want to take this
Yeah.
and I have, I just um the reason for the fairy well, I mean,
Yeah.
besides the play on words,
Yeah.
is in conversations I had with my friend, the therapist, um, we were talking about how kids, what do they do with a worry, right? Like you
Mhm.
can't
Yeah.
you and she basically said that when she works with children, the goal is to have them put it down, you know,
Hmm.
do whatever work they need to do and pick it back up again. They're not trying to get rid of it. They're trying to transform the way that they
Hmm.
think about it, the way they can carry it. And so in my mind, with the fairies and the whole thing, I think of the fairy well as a place you can put your worries down, put
Yeah.
your thoughts down, maybe take a breath, do something else, and then go pick them back up. So I don't know what I'm going to do with that eventually, but that was where the actual fairy well came from, was a
Hmm.
place to put down
I
your
love that. And have you been to any of the Bridget Wells in Ireland?
I have not. I've only been over to England. I'm
Okay.
not, but
So I just fell in love with the Wells in Ireland, particular to Bridget. And this is very interesting. So one of the things that these wells are for is so you go put your worries down.
mhm,
And there's different ways to do that. People will leave objects, they'll leave prayers, but there's also these ribbons that you can tie on the trees or around it. And some people write on the ribbons the worries and then they tie them and
mhm.
leave them for the fairies to unravel for them. And then the threads fly off to become birds' nests.
Mm,
and so forth and so on. So
beautiful.
this that you are really tapped into something very magical here, and I think something that we all need. Because I mean, we do actually, there are places, obviously, in our world here where we can go and leave our worries and burdens. But to be able to create something very simple in your home or with your just when you wake up in the morning or at night, I love this. Um, I am curious, and I hope it's okay to ask this question. But what if, how do I create a fairy? What if I want a fairy well? Like, what if I want something tangible?
Well, that was my first thing I was originally going to do a couple years ago, and I was thinking about this. I'm thinking about creating some kind of a nightlight or a
Oh,
something like that that can, when
yes.
you put your worry down, it lights up, and then when you it holds it for you. So I again I'm a baby business.
I know you're a baby business, a baby business. Let's get this baby business booming. Let's do that because I think there's something about this that really captures my heart and really frees up my imagination and brings me a lot of joy. Like it's interesting that this was a little hitchhiker in
Yeah.
the deck because this really does bring me so much joy. And part of this card really is a reminder to put down the
Mhm.
striving and the pushing and the just let in this case it says let love take over, but why not let the fairies take over?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
love it. So responses as you've, because this is really new for anyone who's listening and doesn't know Ellen, this is a really new business. Like this literally just got birthed in recent months, not even that long. So, but how's that been going for you?
Oh, it's been great. We've actually been going to some fairs mainly because I wanted to get some real feedback,
Yeah.
and I've had nothing but positive feedback. I've had the thing I hear the most is we need this so much.
Yeah.
We need this so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that one of my sort of next steps is I'm creating curriculum that can be used in early childhood
Mhm.
classrooms.
Mhm.
There's a lot of new standards that are required to touch on social emotional language. And so,
I love that. And I am kind of curious because I mean, we have anyone who's listening to the Cosmic Compass probably has seen fairies or felt them around. Um, if there was a child who didn't know what if, I mean, I think pretty much fairies are universal. What do you think?
yeah, I absolutely. I think it is the day and age where it is a little tricky to be talking about magic and
Hmm.
fairies, and there's some, especially in a, a classroom where maybe there's a
Hmm.
variety of families and different backgrounds and
Hmm.
beliefs. But honestly, that doesn't bother me. If it's not,
Doesn't
if it's
bother me.
it's not for them, then it's not for them.
Yeah.
At first, I was trying to think, how do I be careful with my words and not use the word magic and not in that's
So I'm gonna pull this into the astrology. This is a great example for all of us to feel inspired, follow the inspiration. That's the Neptune in Aries. And then the Saturn can go, everything has a shadow side. And Saturn could be like, oh, got to tamp that down. Don't go full out. But the other side of Saturn is like, no, create something that really speaks to you, that is really a true, authentic expression of what you believe, who you are, what matters, what can be helpful, and then let people choose. And that is the better way to do
yeah.
things, I think. So I'm personally obviously very excited about this. And I am there was a question that I had, and I'm going to see if I can come back to it. But until I come back to it, is there anything else you want to say before we move into the raffle at the end?
Nothing off the top of my head. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, I'm just very excited. Well, here's something I wanted to put forward in case people want. to both support you and the business, because really it's about supporting this business and supporting this vision and the inspiration to reach more children. If you know an educator, if you know a counselor, if you know a parent, if you know a grandparent, please feel free to pass along the links. There is going to be a bigger raffle on Instagram. Ellen and I are going to put that together, and I'll probably have that posted later today on my Instagram page or tomorrow for sure. If you, even if you don't know anyone with children, let's just say you know no one with children. I have this idea that these would be a really good gift for shelters. And as we get, right now here in the Northern Hemisphere, it's summer, but we often have these days emergency shelters for fire. And I'm wondering, Ellen, if you have any thoughts on how we could get these into the hands of people who might be able to utilize them
Yeah,
for
you and I
children.
had briefly talked
Yeah.
about that, and I think I would like to add on my website a choice where you can donate a deck,
Oh, I
right?
love that.
You're
Yeah.
interested in it, but you want, I have a lot of connections with the local Children's Advocacy Center.
Mhm.
They actually already are using them, and parents have been asking about them. They love them. So, but where they can be donated to be gifted to children who really can use them. So,
Thank you for that. And I love that these are being vetted. See, this is the thing, like these are being vetted by people who are in this working with children. Um, do you happen to know, I don't know the answer to this question. Do you happen to know if every state, at least in the United States, has a children's advocacy?
yes.
Okay, great. So if anybody feels so inclined, maybe donating one either through the website
Mhm.
or maybe on your own to any of the children's advocacy centers in your community or your state. If you're living in another country, I am certain that they have, because we have a couple people here from the United Kingdom, um, that there are places that they can go there as well. Um, would these decks be used in a school along with a new curriculum, or would you create something different?
So what I'm doing is creating a larger, a bigger
Okay.
version of them so that they can
Yeah.
be used in circle times
Okay.
or put up on a board or something. And then I'm creating activities and things to go with them.
Okay.
Um, yeah, my goal for that is mid-July to have that done.
Oh, great. This is fabulous. I wish we could teleport you all over because just so you all know, I think it was your first setup at the first fair, and it's so magical. And there's coloring books, and oh, do you want to talk about fairy mail?
Yeah, sure. So, tomorrow is International Fairy Day. So we
Yes.
actually are launching a new product. It is Fairy Mail, where it's a subscription, and basically your child or whatever child or yourself or an adult, whoever could use Fairy Mail. Once a month, we will be sending out a piece of magical fairy mail with maybe some little extras inside of it. Each month is a different theme, a different emotion, and a different fairy will be writing from the Fairy Well community, and telling a story, talking about whatever they want to talk about. And so it's fun and magical, but also a little educational.
I know we all want fairy mail. Sign us all up. Now, is it something that actually comes in the mail?
Yeah,
So what you're saying is like it's actually not digital?
it's not digital.
Okay. I mean, ironically, I realize here we are we're on
Well,
Zoom.
there is a digital element in that whoever signs up will get a little piece of advice every month on how to maybe talk about what's in the letter.
Oh, okay.
So some guidance on just like they would be on the back of the cards.
You're gonna probably have to get people to help you because we're gonna be like wanting a lot of fairy mail. This is very exciting. All right, so this is launching tomorrow on your website, so we can
It
send it
is.
tomorrow.
Yep. Sign up tomorrow. I do have an email list on, not that people love joining email lists and getting
Right.
swamped, but I'm not swamping people with mail. But as all of these things are rolling out, if you want to join our email list, everything will be announced as it's coming to fruition.
Okay, I love that. And tell us I mean, I put the website
Yeah.
in the email I sent yesterday, but what is the actual website address?
So the website is thefairywell.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thefairywell.com. Very important to put the in there.
Yeah.
Thefairywell.com. Okay. Now let's talk just a teeny weeny bit more about the fairies themselves and
Mhm.
celebrations. Because you have little fairy houses at your place. I've seen them. What would fairies like tomorrow for International Fairy Day? What would they like for their celebration?
Mm. I think they would be happy if we could take a day to really put our worries down in the midst of this crazy world and try to just live in a magical day, even if it's just one day,
Okay.
to consciously put our worries down and our anxieties and
I think you're
try to
right.
try to join them in a day of magic and joy.
Oh, all right, sign us all up. I can see Fairy Well retreats in the future. Just saying. I'll be there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to end the recording so we can do the raffle. But before I do that, thank you so much, Ellen, for being here. Thank you so much
Correcting me.
for bringing the Fairy Well into this world right now. The timing could not be better.
Thank you.